JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Friday, October 24th, 9:18 on this fine morning. Talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from the S&P futures in the green, up about 0.6% after the cooler than expected CPI data. Somewhat mostly in line, just a tad cooler than expectations. But all this pent up angst around data not coming out for the last couple of weeks, it's like almost a collective sigh of relief that the data is not extremely hotter than expected or substantially cooler than expected. Although I think the substantially cooler than expected number might actually have a larger reaction to the upside. I hate gaps. I think I've said this many times. To me, some of the worst days are the days where we have a huge gap and then the open, everything looks great, and then we just kind of things melts, right? And maybe we'll still close green today, but the names that you were hoping to maybe trade some lottos on or have some follow through the end of the day, typically the highs of the day are made at the open. So, and those are not my favorite days. My favorite days are when we have gap lowers and then sell offs and then we have a bounce. We'll see how today plays out. Obviously, I'm not complaining. Names I'm in are all gapping, so just got to keep in the back of your head that probably we're sitting here at 676 on the SPY. We'll probably have some weakness at some point. Not for any reason than just people taking profits, right? And people, oh, what news was something in the CPI that it's just finally people are discovering. I don't think it'll be anything like that. Just how the markets work. So anyway, looks like we'll open at all-time highs. Nats small caps are up 1.3%. The IWM was soaring over 251. So monster stuff here. The VIX is down 4.5%. Yields are tumbling. And then gold, which was actually down over 1.5%, has started to bounce here, is at the highs here. Still slightly in the red. We'll see how that plays out. But overall markets, I talked about 675. On the SPY, we're at 676 here, so maybe that will provide some support. If we do get some selling, 670, 668 is another key spot. I mean, that's a large reversal, but if we do get there, that'll be a spot I watch, and then maybe I would get some lotto hedge puts if things get crazy. I don't think that'll be the case, but to me, this kind of, I wouldn't call it a Goldilocks scenario here, but to me, it just sets the floor heading into the weekend. But also, you have to keep in mind what happened overnight or late yesterday. Trump came out saying the trade talks are off with Canada because of some ad that they're running, right? So it's funny, the market barely reacts. You would, if that headline came out in May, June, the futures would be off like 2% in a flash. So this kind of shows how that environment in regards to the tariff situation, trade talks with all these countries, it seems like all this is been negotiating ploys. So probably continues, and I'm sure that'll get rectified and worked out. But anyway, it's just funny how that's shaken off. Outside of that, next week, earnings. So I think it's like 5 of the 7, the Magnificent 7 report. So I think it's one day, I think Thursday's Amazon and Apple, and then I think Wednesday is Google, Microsoft, and Meta. So I mean, that's trillions of dollars of market capitalization reporting in 2 days. So it's going to be a fun week in regards to earnings. And some of the reason why, I put it in the watch this morning, it's like markets sold off on Wednesday, no big news or catalyst really. And then markets rallied yesterday, no news, or big news or catalyst. And you can also almost make the case, right? We had the Tesla and IBM earnings, and both those stocks were lower. Actually, I mean, Tesla reversed the losses, but you can make the case that markets should have rallied Wednesday and sold off Thursday. But to me, I think it's the backdrop of the earnings. The earnings season continues to be stronger than expectations. You see beats and raises, and then the margin things, right? And that, if you talked about tariffs and impacts on businesses, you would think the concern would be that margins were taking a hit, and it hasn't been the case, right? I mean, the big story, right? Back in April, even at the start of the year, February, March, when we had the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and it was supposed to destroy the car industry, right? The whole, the big logistical issue of parts and going across the border multiple times. So because of that, tariffs are going to get hit multiple times on the parts and just and then it's all of a sudden, here it is, fast forward 8 months later, GM's at all-time highs, right? So it's just funny. Like, I'm not saying dismiss everything that comes out in April or all the concerns on the recessions and everything, but it's just, you got to take things with a grain of salt, because if you just let the news and all that guide your thoughts, it's going to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You're going to miss the rallies, right? All right. At the same token, got to take things with a grain of salt too. At some point, some of this stuff's going to come to a head, and we'll have some opportunities on the downside. So, all right, that's overall market 675, then 668 on the downside. I mean, we get some overshoot here on blue skies. I don't know if we get to 670, but we hit 678 right after that news, so maybe that'll be the spot there. And then yields back over 4% for a flash yesterday, and then that's reversing. So we'll close back under 4% on the 10-year, which is good stuff. Fed meeting next week too. So All right, that's overall market. Now just quick on individual names. SanDisk, just monster, up 20% this week, up 14% yesterday. No news, no catalyst, no upgrade, just FOMO, right? Um, got those lotto calls on Friday, locked some in on Monday, locked more in yesterday for 200%, and then a couple more for 400%. I just held the last couple into today just because to me, you look at it, I'm like, wow, this thing could go, this could have more FOMO today. It's gapping up another $8 here this morning. My call's gonna be at probably $10 at the open, maybe a little more. I'm going to close them out right at the open. I mean, maybe this goes to 180, right? But to me, I'm not going to try and chase a couple bucks where there's possible risk of it going green to red today. So what a monster. And then the other side is I was looking for calls into next week, and the premiums are tough. I mean, obviously, a heck of a lot tougher today than they were a couple days ago because of the big 14% move yesterday. But, at some point, similar to the market, this will offer a prime opportunity for a hedge or put, but the premiums are too elevated on both sides. So I'll just be happy with the profits, monster trade, and I'll move on that one. And then later in the afternoon, I'm back in NKLR. They'll be at a conference next week. I think it's next Wednesday, and there's a list of conferences they have for the coming weeks. Multiple conferences in November, some more in December, and this is a pre-revenue story, right? So it's not one of those stories that you're worried about earnings and revenues and stuff. No, this is hey, the landscape for energy is changing and shifting, and here's some names that are ready on the cusp of taking advantage of that. And I think there's a name that's somewhat under the radar still. So I don't want to be in a spot where I'm chasing this, but I think at some point it's going to get FOMO again. So I was looking, I was talking about on the rants the last couple of days. I was looking at the November 20s, well, the 2250s, and it kept dipping, the 1750s, and then finally pulled the trigger yesterday. Like I've been doing, I'll lock some on the way up. Hopefully I'll get in a situation where I can just lock some in to cover costs and ride the rest free, emotionless, and then hopefully get some FOMO there. NKLR, and then Reddit, right? So Reddit, I mean, I've been trading for the last couple of weeks, and similar situation that I've been doing on Reddit. I would get the lottos, able to close some out to cover costs, and then the trade doesn't pan out, right? We'll see. Hopefully we get a little different result here or outcome today. But yesterday, Reddit gapped. It was 201, 202, then up to 205. Locked some calls out for 60%, locked some more out for over 100%. And then it held the rest, and then it does what it's been doing. It faded the run up in the morning, still closed in the green, up nearly 2%, but not at the highs. And then it's gapping here this morning, all the way up to 208 earlier. It's sitting here at 207.50. We'll see if we can get some squeeze here. The thing with Reddit, too, they report earnings next Thursday. So for me to try and get some calls into next week, the 300 strikes are $1. Do I think it's going to have a monster beat and raise like it had last quarter? I think so. Am I convicted enough to try and play some lottos on it? Probably not. So if I do get a chance next week or even later today to get some calls to play for premium build, I will. Maybe the 290s, right? If I can get those for $1. But hopefully I can get some more of my calls out at the open, and then I'll just hold the rest for maybe I'll get a squeeze here today. That's Reddit. And then speaking of earnings, I mean, Deck, how disappointing. And I got to get off the rant here because market's going to open in a second. But Deck, if you had told me what the earnings were going to be ahead of time, I would have said, wow, this thing's going to soar to 115, 120. They had a great quarter. I guess their guidance a little weak into 2026. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, you still have some bearish analysts on the name. Disappointing, frustrating. It comes with the territory. My calls, which I got in the morning, were up 60% to the close, but I wasn't holding. I don't hold most position for a 60% gain, right? The reason I got it was the premise that they were going to have back-to-back strong quarters and the stock was going to soar. Not the case here. Part of the game. Unfortunately, I have to stare at these calls till next Friday, pending any crazy move over the next couple sessions. And then definitely open to some lotto trades here today. I keep looking at MDB. I hate to miss that one. Yesterday, I was staring at Tesla and IBM for bounces. Missed those, but maybe MDB for 340 today. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back. Oh, and Fix, right? Fix, it would have been one of my top 5 stocks this year. Instead, I went with the BMI, Badger water meters. And sure, take a look at Fix. If you got kids, get them into the trade school, the HVAC, the electrician, the plumbing. All right, let's have a great day, folks. I'll be back. Rock and roll.